The spotlight has been on Kamala Harris this week in the Democrats' National Convention in Chicago. If you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, is she going to become the next US president? Last month, the media investors, almost everybody was talking as if Trump was the favorite. But Harris's popularity, according to the polls, is on the rise. Her rating has increased by 2.3 percentage points since entering the race. And she's currently ahead of Donald Trump, supposedly by 1.5% in the polls. Some people are calling this a rather peculiar term, Kamala momentum. Harriet, obviously there's been a lot of twists and turns in the US election. It's been pretty fast moving. How is the market reacting to this latest twist?
Yeah, morning. Markets will be watching election momentum and polling to gauge the likely outcome of the presidential election. As you mentioned, there has been a significant shift in both Democratic candidate momentum and polling since Harris joined the race. And with the situation now looking more balanced, markets will consequently look to reflect this in pricing. However, pinpointing the precise impact isn't easy. We've seen some pretty large moves in markets recently, so a lot more than election news has been on investors' minds. But we have seen some signs that markets are paying attention to Harris and the probability of her becoming the next US president. For example, regular watchers will remember a few weeks ago, we did another episode on popular trades that were emerging among investment banks, so-called Trump trades, trades that would perform well if Trump were to win. And these have been pared back and losing momentum as Harris has been rising in the polls.
Yeah, I remember that episode. So I guess what you're saying now is markets are kind of seeing a two-horse race. I was actually this morning looking at the US election predictor of the publication The Economist, and it is incredibly close. They have, I suppose, a probability is a 1 in 2 chance for either Harris or Trump winning the election. Obviously, recently we have heard quite a lot about Trump's policies, but how are markets weighing up Harris's policies?
In many ways, we're still finding out what Harris's policies will be. We expect them to be quite similar to Biden, and therefore more likely to maintain the status quo relative to a Trump presidency. Harris has said earlier in the week that her party at her party convention that she plans to stick by Joe Biden's proposals to increase corporate tax rate, and that's in stark contrast to Trump, who, as we know, back in 2017 slashed the corporate tax rate and has said he would cut the tax rate further if he is re-elected. The market also expects that the risk of an escalation in the US-China trade war under Harris to be less focused on tariffs, although we do know that the Democrats are, like the Republicans, have a very tough stance on China. But the trade policy that Trump is proposing is obviously very different. He wants to broadly impose 10% tariffs on imports to the US from all countries, and then 60% tariffs for those goods that are imported from China. And this would have very significant ramifications for inflation and growth, both in the US and in those economies who export to the US.
Okay, so I guess quite a lot for markets to weigh up, actually. So I guess, Harris is ahead for now, and she's going to need to keep her momentum going to some extent, right? I suppose, what has she been doing so far that has, meant that she has had a little bit of a lead over Trump?
Kamala's nomination has really re-energized the Democratic Party and their campaign funding. She seems to be doing a good job of building trust and connecting with voters at a personal level, particularly in key Sunbelt states where she's appealing to a broader range of a diverse electorate, which is helping to push her ahead in the polls. Obviously, we've had the Democratic Party convention this week. We've had a lot of focus on very notable Democratic party leaders. We had the Obama speaking yesterday. There's a lot of focus and kind of free press, if you like, around this event, which will be helping with momentum, and they'll need to keep that momentum going once the convention is over.
Thanks, Harriet. Really interesting. That's all we've got time for today. It does feel a bit like Kamala Harris has flipped the US election script, doesn't it? We'll see you all next time for another episode that's caught our eye from markets. See you soon.